Are you ready to accelerate the growth of your business? Welcome to the Revenue Growth Podcast. This is the place for business owners, sales leaders, and marketing professionals to get ideas and inspiration to drive exponential revenue growth. Each week, you'll get actionable insights from the world's leading marketing and sales thought leaders and practitioners. Are you ready to grow? Let's join our host, Doyle, author of Revenue Growth Engine.
Welcome back to the Revenue Growth Podcast. Your host, Doyle, trailblazer and growth architect. We've got a great conversation lined up today. If you're responsible for driving growth in your business, but have run out of levers to pull, you're frustrated with dead in the water marketing ideas and sales that never seem to get closed, then you're absolutely going to want to stay tuned for this conversation with my new friend, Sean M. Doyle. Today's episode is brought to you by the Breakthrough Sales Leaders Retreat, coming to you October 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. If you're a sales leader or you know one, you don't want to miss this event. I'll be joined by an incredible team of coaches, including Larry Levine and Dave Sanderson, and you're going to get the mindset, skill set, and tool set to build an authentic selling culture to grow your sales. You'll leave with a 100-day breakthrough plan so you can build your team, develop your culture, and make 2023 the best year ever, as well as closing out a great Q4. To learn more and register, go to www.breakthroughsalesretreat.com. That's www.breakthroughsalesretreat.com. We've got a great guest today. Sean M. Doyle is the author of Shift, 19 practical business-driven ideas for an executive in charge of marketing, but not trained in the task. He's also the principal at FitzMartin, a leading consultancy focused on sales, marketing management, sales and marketing technology, and revenue operations. Over a 25-year career with over 5,000 client engagements, Sean has amassed an unmatched expertise in helping B2B companies succeed in selling more to their most profitable customers. This is going to be a great conversation. Sean, welcome to the Revenue Growth Podcast.
It's great to be here. I was just making a note. I need to tell my publicist to dial back that intro. That's ridiculous. Come on.
Well, hey, look, I'm excited about this conversation today. And I'm mostly excited about this issue that so many sales leaders have and their marketing teams as well, is stuff getting stuck in the funnel. Stuff gets stuck in the pipeline, deals that never seem to close. I like to call it 30, 60, never on the forecast. And there is some behavioral science that you bring to the table that can really help out in this area. I'm curious, as you think about deals that don't close, like where do you begin dissecting that?
I love it. And the most common mistake or the most common thread that I would say everybody listening could learn from when we do these audits, and we use this philosophy called centricity, we understand and discover that marketing is unequipped to help sales close more deals. And often they don't have enough revenue because the budget typically gets spent on all this kind of early stage, sexy, sizzly stuff that marketing people do. Maybe you spend more money and you look on some technology that rides through the whole journey, the buyer's journey. But the idea of centricity and the application of behavioral science is you're taking a buyer through change, right? Isn't that what sales really does? And I think good selling is helping, right? I'm helping somebody change from buying a product or service, but they could buy a better product or service. And by better, I don't mean you get a good commission. I mean better's for them, right? You've got to be buyer centric. That's where centricity is from. So the way we identify these gaps and these problems is centricity has to look at sales, has to look at marketing, has to look at technology, and it has to look at communication tools. So that is where we uncover through this framework where that revenue is capped and where people get exhausted. Where do buyers get exhausted? Where does sales get, where do they get tired? Where's the management team get tired? Why is the pipeline filled, but the CFO never says we got the revenue? Like that's what we love to attack as a business. And I'm sure that's what you like to attack. You come in and help companies that really understand the need for a framework and the value of having it. Because honestly, Daryl, that's my last. I'm going to shut up after this comment. Your audience doesn't give a dang about my ideas. What they care about is how these ideas might improve their lives. So I will tell you, this idea works, not because I'm a marketing guy filled with hubris and hype, and we've all learned that management based on hope is just not management. But we've gotten outside of ourselves. We've gone and leaned into some science, behavioral science, that is trustworthy, and it's true, and it works. And we've been using it since 2002. But the first time we used it, we helped a client get $380 million of revenue. I mean, I'm telling you now, it surprised us as much as it surprised them. This stuff works, it's incredible. So it's not us.
That's
We're
awesome.
not that smart. We just read a book.
Well, hey, this is the trick, right? Is discovering and applying science to be able to help. And I read a stat recently, and I think this is an underreported stat from Gartner that said 38% of deals are stuck in a pipeline, never to close. And I think that number is low. I've seen it higher in specific industries. And so coach us. So behavior science, I mean, where do you start? So I'm a sales leader. I'm looking at my sales pipeline. I got all these, hope is not a strategy. I'm going through deal reviews with reps, and they're going, oh, I think it's going to close someday. And you're like, no, it's not. And you got to forecast off this, right? So what do you do about it?
Gosh, well, I'll give you some, here's some secret. I'm going to give you some intellectual property. Anybody can steal this, and the first person to build this piece of technology wins. The behavioral science says you can ask 4 questions to understand where a deal really is, because a salesperson wants to be excited about a deal. They've got an emotional investment. Plus there's a dangle out there. There's cash on the end. So they're always going to elevate what they think they see in a deal. And you've got to have not an arbitrary, a non-arbitrary, an authentic third-party evaluation. So the science gives, this book, Changing for Good, is incredible. It gives you 4 ways to ask questions. So
Dr. Prochaska's book.
Prochachka. Yeah. You know Prochachka?
I got to have dinner with him about 10 years ago up in Rhode Island. What a fascinating guy.
Killing me. I so want to meet him. If you're listening today, please take my call. I've had an email dialogue with him.
Now we're eye to eye. I'm a huge fan of Changing for Good. So let's talk about these questions.
Yeah. So what their science says is the trans-theoretical theorem of behavioral change, which bores everybody. That's why we call it centricity, because it's just a little
shorten
easier.
It up, give it a brand, right?
Just shorten it up. But this idea is, if you look at all the types of science, you see many different things. And interestingly enough, Freudian theory is typically what roots around marketing. Most marketers have adopted that, even if it's unknowledgeably. They just don't know that it's there, but that's the root of it. The trans-theoretical then expands that thinking to understand lots of different ways, because in their science, what they learned was, Daryl, you tried to quit and you went through one theology, one methodology, and you couldn't quit. But I went through that same exact process, and I was successful in a behavioral change. So they wanted to study, and they did study and codified this system of stages that you go through as you change behavior. Well, any salesperson or executive hears that and says, yeah, that's called a pipeline, dummy.
Right.
Maybe you are a numbskull marketing guy. Well, that's right. It is a pipeline. That's not the beauty of this understanding centricity and what the trans-theoretical theorem taught me, and that we've applied since 2002. And that is, there are processes that your marketing team leans on because of the one bias they have in the way they've learned marketing. That it's stuff like creating awareness. It's stuff like doing social media to create maybe some social liberation, testimonials. Those are 2 of the best practices. Well, that's great, but they don't help close deals. So what happens when you close deals? Well, an environmental control, according to the behavioral science, says that's an effective tool that closes deals, but it's only effective right before you close.
Hmm.
And this consciousness raising awareness thing is only effective at the very beginning of the buyer's journey. Most marketers don't know how to break that down. Most executives don't know how to require marketing to break that down. I would love, here's a great question. It's a simple question too. And I
Hmm.
want you to ask it because or answer it because I think you've seen into a lot of businesses. Most executives, if you ask this question, here it is. Does your sales team see marketing as an asset to call upon when they want to close a deal?
I think the answer would be marketing. That's a sales role. And
How many salespeople
yeah.
call on marketing to help them close a deal? They stiff arm.
Well, and I think the reason for that, and I love, in Changing for Good with the 5 stages of change, and I remember meeting the great doctor, and he did all that research in smoking cessation, right? Which is the
Hmm.
ultimate hard change, right? How do you
Right.
stop smoking? It's a really tough thing to do. And I remember in those 5 stages, that what worked in one stage actually was counterproductive in another.
Yes.
So I think the
Yes.
reason that salespeople, this will be my theory, and maybe see if you can back this up or refute it. My theory is that marketing is typically involved in the awareness phase in generating demand very early on, and they're
Yep.
skilled at that. They're good at that.
Right.
But by the time you get to the phase of making that decision, the tactics that work in the awareness phase that marketing is so good at could actually be counterproductive or
They
just not
are.
helpful at all. And so I think we know that as
Absolutely.
sales professionals.
Yeah.
That's why we don't make the ask.
But here's the other part of that side, and you're spot on. You get it, right? So most sales, I would ask any executive listening, go ask your SVP of sales or your sales team, why would they ever call marketing? And if they say no, here's the equivalent of what you're doing. You're saying, I'm going to accept marketing that is ill-equipped to close deals in my business. I'm going to accept a marketing team or an ad agency that doesn't know how to equip my sales team to close that Gartner 40%
Mhm.
of deals that you lose. I'm
So
intentionally choosing to, to leave my sales team unequipped because that's what you're doing. Because the science teaches us that there are 5 best practices that are effective, as you said, at the end of the change. As you start to move from, we would call it action to an exchange relationship or action to a
right.
behavioral change. There's
Mhm.
5 best practices. That one I mentioned, environmental control, is only one. And when marketing knows how to use those 5, then they go to sales and say, look, hey, here's 5 weapons. Here's 5 tools for you to equip you to close more deals. But you're going to have to earn trust from sales. First of all, they're not going to listen to most marketers because most marketers are flighty or fun or artsy or whatever marketing's supposed to be. You get to earn their trust, right, and prove it.
Mhm.
And when we did this for the first time in 2002, the story is this: we were approached by our guerrilla client, so we were terrified. We had to say yes. With, hey, here's a list of 1,500 businesses that would change our story. We would would revolutionize our P&L if you can close them. Now, we've gone through 2 agencies. We've fired both of them because marketing doesn't work. Do you want to try it? Oh, okay. So we audited. We just we used centricity. We did an audit. We identified what the other people did. We also talked to sales, which the other 2 agencies didn't do. We also looked at technology, which the other agencies didn't do. And we looked at the communications. So by communications, I mean, what best practices are we using from the science to close deals versus create more awareness? And you're right, Daryl. I mean, it's like you were in the room. What the other agencies did is they created more awareness. They took them to late stage deals, and the late stage deals said, we already know you exist. We already know what you do. We don't
Mhm.
care. So
Mhm.
nothing changed. And the interesting thing about that target account list was that they all did know each other. So we had to force reevaluation, and consciousness raising would cause somebody to go, I knew you existed, but I didn't know how you mattered to me. That's a
Mhm.
very different type of awareness, right?
Right.
Then we equipped with helping relationships and private and public commitments. And this, I mean, again, I'm not brilliant. Prochachka, Norcross, and DiClemente are brilliant. And you've got to have and that's what centricity is about. I want to revolutionize the way marketing works. I want executives to require this of their teams, of their agencies. Quit hiring creative art. And listen, I love creative. Good creative works. But good creative works only if they understand what they should be communicating. That's why we don't say it's sales, marketing, technology, and creative. We say it's sales, marketing, technology, and communications.
Yeah.
Brilliant creative helps communicate better. But when you hire somebody who's a brilliant art director and then say marketing doesn't work, my challenge is it's the executive that's not equipped to know what to expect. And it's not, again, buy this book, Buy Changing for Good, read it, come to FitzMartin.com/free help, and I'll give you the framework that we use. There's enough business in the world for me to give this stuff away. It's
Absolutely.
fine. And it's, you'll discover it. So we do these revenue pipeline audits all the time, and that is the power of it. So the other part of your question is, what do we say to that SVP of sales? What I say is contrarian to what most marketing firms do. Most marketing firms say, and I'll just use crass vernacular, well, we're going to build the top of the funnel, then we're going to nurture some people, and then we're going to equip the sales team to close. Well, they don't ever say the last sentence. They talk about the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel, but so what? That's so amateur in my mind. It's so simple. And people are not simple. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but people are not simple. And it's not intelligent to approach that way. You should be approaching this from a perspective that has enough understanding that you don't rule out marketing because you hired the wrong people. Here's a great question when you're interviewing a CMO or when you're interviewing an agency. Say, I love seeing all your stuff. It's great hearing your story. Tell me what you do to close a late stage deal. And if they can't answer that question, you've got the wrong person and you're getting ready to waste more money on marketing. I mean,
wow.
it just doesn't. Yeah. So, I mean, have it. Don't hire us. Don't hire me. I mean, read the stuff, try it yourself. If you can't figure it out, then call me. But then Daryl, you do this stuff too. You audit it. You understand this. You look at late stage deals. What do you see? What do you know the doctor himself. I'm still angry a little bit about that.
Well, hey, you got to just make the call and ask.
I have.
Well, we'll have more conversation about that later, but they had really, really good scallops up there in Rhode Island. I just got to say that. But that's just mean. But let's just think about and it's interesting. Remembering the 5 stages of change. Let's see if I get these right. Pre-contemplation, not even on my radar. Good. Contemplation, thinking about it. Planning.
I would call it preparation, but yeah,
preparation.
That's planning.
Okay,
that's
and
correct.
then action, and then maintenance, right?
And then which we call that. We since we're working in the parlance of the economy, and since the scorecard for what you and I do is cash, so we say that behavioral change is marked by an exchange relationship. Because that exchange relationship signifies a change in behavior. One of the greatest compliments I can get, and I got one 2 weeks ago, a salesperson from one of my clients sent me an email, copied the executive team, and said, "Hey, I just got this $496,000 PO, and you were an important part of closing this deal. Thank you."
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a right. Win. That's a win for marketing. Absolutely. If your marketing win looks like an Addy, then you're talking about creative, and that's just such a tiny, incomplete view of what we should be doing. Anyway, you're getting me excited. Here.
Great. Now, this is going to be a fun conversation. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this for a while, long past this podcast being over. But if you look at these 5 stages, pre-contemplation and contemplation, pre-contemplation, I mean, it's not on my radar. I mean, this is the work of marketing, right? Is to turn latent need into felt need and all of that at the beginning.
I think that's true. And I can teach very quickly the mistake. And I mentioned it earlier. I'm aware. How many things are you aware of that you do not buy?
Oh,
The majority of
thousands.
things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So what did the marketer fail to do there? They failed to understand how to make that product or service relevant to you, to what matters to you, because there's still an old-fashioned idea that awareness creates sales. Awareness is a
Mm-mm.
portion of it. You can't buy something you've never heard of, but it's not sales. And you can. I love UCal Berkeley. I love science. They did a really interesting study on pain and what motivates humans. Nothing motivates humans more than the elimination of pain in our lives. So the
Mm-hmm.
way I teach people to create awareness is you map out the buyer's pain,
Mm-hmm.
and then you create awareness around how my product or service would matter to you strategically, how it would
Mm-hmm.
matter to you financially, and how it would matter to you personally. Number one rule in economics, right? What's in it for me? So UCal Berkeley teaches us pain mapping is the right way to create awareness. So what if you exist? You just wasted money. Teach me how you exist. Teach the buyer how you exist and how you matter. It's another great test as you want to look at. That's why we test communications, not creative. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to look at your early pipeline advertising, your marketing, your agency's work, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to look at the colors. I might look at the colors, but I'm going to look at the what is being communicated. And if all you're saying is we exist, so what? You've just wasted money. Who cares? I literally don't care.
Well, and
Is that
so if you
harsh?
fast forward, it's not harsh at all, because I'm a firm believer that buyers don't buy products and services, never have. They buy the outcomes those products and services deliver, and it better be related to a top level goal
Yeah.
or a
Financial, strategic,
major
or
challenge,
personal.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit. So we get to the decision making process. Now we've been through
Mm.
all of this. Now that buyer, and really in B2B now, it's now that buying team
Hmm.
is now at a place where they've got to take action.
Yeah.
What compels action and what holds it
Mm.
back inside the theories that we're talking about with change for good?
Um, that's a challenging question because it gets into uh, the application, the principles we can talk about here, but the application is so specific to the buy, what it is that we're trying to resolve. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you're selling a large capex product, then that's going to be very different from office equipment, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Is it disposable? Is it, there's just a lot of variability there. So I guess I am hedging a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the thing is at the early part of that stage, of that journey, when you're moving into preparation, uh, often there are two things happen that I observe. One, marketing owns it because there's beginning to, um, communicate information about how this thing would change your life, right? To
Mm-hmm.
meet those pains. But the question then in turn is, why does marketing own it if all they know how to do is create this emotional, rational, this awareness, this social liberation, these testimonials, which
Mm-hmm.
are often incorrectly used, by the way. But the idea of a testimonial is my quick aside. We can talk about it for a whole subject if you
That'd
want
be a
to. But
future episode that'd be so fun to tear
it's
apart.
so used so wrong so often. It's incredible. But
Love it.
the idea is that at that time, sales and marketing should carry about equal weight of the responsibility. Well, why? Well, let's talk about large capex.
Mm.
Typically, there could be a pre-engineering need. There could be a consultative sale need. There's this myth, oh, we don't want to give anything away. Well, okay, I'm not giving anything away by telling you everything I do at work. I've told you where I got my stuff. I've told you, I'll give you my framework that I use. I'm not giving anything away. People who don't want to do it themselves, don't have the time to do it themselves, or want somebody who's done it 2,000 times since 2002, you're going to call me. And that's fine.
Right.
So, I mean, why are people so afraid of giving away their stuff? But if you've got an engineered product, there's going to be helping relationships needed. Well, marketing often doesn't think about that.
Mm.
Another thing marketing doesn't think about that's this balance of sales and marketing is marketers are driven to get people to reveal who they are, right? We're trying to get that name, that email.
Mhm.
Like we've been taught to
Mhm.
do that. Inbound technologies taught me to do that. We're going to leverage that. I'll give you a little exchange relationship. I'll give you some information if you give me your name. Some of that's appropriate, some of it's not. But the idea of private commitment and public commitment is something a salesperson understands.
Mhm.
And Changing for Good, Prochachka talks about this. Like, Daryl, I'll talk to you about something that my division is not working very well, and I'm a little afraid I'm going to get fired. But I need to know, okay, am I going to say it that literally? Maybe not. But I'm going to talk to you about it as a salesperson and say, how can you help me resolve this personal, financial, strategic pain?
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit. But it's just the two of us. I don't want your marketing team getting me on a list for how to save your job. I don't want, there's risk in sharing information, especially to a salesperson, right? Because a
Mhm.
bad salesperson leverages that information for their own gain. A good salesperson helps the person. So that private commitment, marketers want to make it a public commitment. Well, let's put a presentation together and let's do it for the executive team. Wait a second. You didn't sell me yet. And if I don't know that Daryl's going to help me, I'm not going to take him to the VPs and risk me looking dumb, right? So there's these delicate things where marketing and sales have to coordinate. The only way, this is why I come back to centricity. The only way sales and marketing can coordinate at these pivotal times is if you're buyer centric. If you're
Mhm.
sales centric, you can't win. If you're marketing centric, you can't win. If you're centered on the buyer's needs, not your own needs, the buyer's needs, the net result is sales aligns to marketing because they're not trying to align to each other. They're
That's right.
aligning around the buyer. And that's
Yes.
the truth, right? And if you can do that, then some of these middle of the funnel things start happening that are pretty. It roll my eyes when I see people talk about sales and marketing alignment because that's the wrong alignment.
Yeah. I
Focus
love it.
on aligning to
Ideal
the
client.
buyer. Everything else,
Bingo.
yeah, exactly.
Ah,
Everything else will
so good.
align. Yeah.
What a
Anyway,
kindred spirit of the Revenue Growth Podcast. We've got a new friend here,
yeah.
Sean. Well, this has been really fantastic. I love this. And I think this conversation is going to keep going, but we have bumped into the bottom of the hour. So let me ask you this. How can folks get more Sean M. Doyle in their life?
Well, if you want to read my, and every schmuck who ever wrote a book tells you about it, right? So here's mine.
I know.
But
I'm
if
excited.
you if you go to Amazon, you can buy it there. Rock Bench out of Nashville published me a couple years back, and I did try to drill down some of these complex ideas to be incredibly simple and easy to apply, because most executives really don't have an understanding of marketing. And I
Mhm.
just, you can if you're seeing any of this, you realize I have no hair, and that's from beating my head on the wall after so many meetings. And it's just like, I want to help executives be successful. So it's a book filled with 19 practical ideas, and it's stuff you can apply right away. I think I'm still $10,000 upside down on my book. So I'm not making money. Just come buy the dang thing or shoot me
We'll
an
help you
email,
out. We'll
Sean
help
at
you
Sean at FitzMartin.com. I'll send you a book. I'll charge Daryl. It's great.
There you
Just send
go.
me an email, Sean at FitzMartin.com, or come to FitzMartin.com/free help. You can download some videos and some worksheets that is all around this centricity idea. So come
I
on.
love
And
it.
Changing for Good. It's the source, man. It's great. Um,
Yeah,
just get into
absolutely.
it.
Well, Sean, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. It's and I'm still I'm pretty sure one of the cardinal sins is envy or jealousy, and I'm kind of there with you, Scallops, Dr. Prochachka.
we'll figure that out. Well, thank
Man,
you. Hey, have a super day. I appreciate
thank you.
you. And I appreciate everyone else in the Revenue Growth Podcast audience. Thank you for liking, sharing, and most of all, leaving reviews for the podcast. It helps us spread the word. And there is a growing community of sales, marketing, and entrepreneurial folks who are saying, let's work together. As Sean was saying, let's align around the client and the prospect and the needs that they have. Let's move together. Thanks again to the folks at Breakthrough Sales Leaders Retreat. I'm looking forward to being there with Larry Levine and Dave Sanderson, and hopefully you as well. If you're a sales leader or you know one, come join us on October 20th in Fort Worth, Texas at the City Club. It is going to be a powerful day. You'll leave with a 100-day breakthrough sales leadership plan that is going to help you transform your sales. Thanks again to everyone who's out there pushing and driving to grow. We're right here in the heat of summer. We've got a great lineup of guests coming throughout the fall, so make sure to like or subscribe. And until next time, let's get going and let's get growing.